Well, I'm here tonight at D&J to tell you that the white man ain't got no morals and he ain't got no conscience. Tonight at D&J to tell you that the white man ain't got no morals and he ain't got no conscience. Dr. King believed in civil rights. Well, I'm here to tell you that the white man ain't too civil and he ain't too right. Malcolm believed in human rights. I'm here to tell you that the white man ain't too human and he ain't too right. It makes no difference whether it's civil rights or human rights. You must weigh the circumstances surrounding the very origin of the white man into the world to then determine if he's capable of being civil, if he's capable of being human. This we must put on the scale of Ma'at and give it the Ma'atic weigh-in and see if it strikes the Ma'atic balance. And if it does not strike the Ma'atic balance, then we must make sure that we are not victims of history, because it is written that he or she who does not learn the lessons of history is doomed to repeat them. 30 years ago, the prestigious, pristine presidential White House Commission set up by Lyndon Baines Johnson, a redneck camel-bred hunky from Texas, an outlaw from Texas, a gun-slinging outlaw from Texas. Lyndon Baines Johnson set up the Kerner Commission, and the Kerner Commission determined that America 30 years ago was two Americas, one black and one white, separate and unequal, and that the number one problem in America 30 years ago was white racism. 30 years later, after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the Kerner Commission has reconvened and determined that America is still two Americas, one black and one white, separate still, unequal still, and that the number one problem in America today is still white racism. 30 years after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., they questioned Jet Magazine staff, and journalists questioned the widow of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. They questioned Sister Coretta Scott King. They questioned his daughter. They questioned his son. They questioned the Reverend Wyatt T. Walker. They questioned former city councilman Hosea Williams, who was one of his right-hand men. They questioned Andy Young, former mayor of Atlanta, Georgia, and former ambassador to the United Nations. They questioned them, and they questioned others, and they put the question to them about success or failure. They put the question to them, have we really made progress 30 years after Dr. King? They wanted them to analyze the dream of Dr. King, and they all said that they could see some change here and there, but they all agreed that America had a long, long way to go. Some of them were even specific. 30 years after Dr. King, if we're going to deal with civil rights and human rights, and we're going to weigh it properly, we must understand that affirmative action, which was important to Dr. King, but never has been important to me, because the action has never been affirmative. We don't need affirmative action. We need reparations and freedom and independence, liberation and salvation. But affirmative action was important to Dr. King. 30 years after Dr. King, affirmative action does not even remain a dream anymore. It's a nightmare now. A recalcitrant cold wind blowing through Congress, blowing through the Senate, blowing through the White House, whistling throughout the hells of North America, has now swept affirmative action almost but from the scene today. 30 years after the dream of the dreamer, Section 8 entitlements, quota systems that were supposed to level the playing field after people had been robbed of their names, their language, their religion, their culture, their God, their folkways, their mores, their norms, robbed of the very power of our own being. All of that is being erased today. Such measures that were supposed to be set up to level the playing field. Now you've got devils, you've got so-called Jews, imposter Jews coming up with theories and theorems on a bell curve. Other crackers saying that we are genetically inferior. Other crackers saying that we are stuck at the bottom. Other crackers saying that we are black jelly beans stuck at the bottom of the bag or the jar. Look at it. You break both of my legs and then you call a race. Break both of my legs and you stand, somebody working with you, stands at the starter's line, fires the starter's pistol, and you're the only one running. You break the tape, and then you turn around and criticize me because I haven't made it to the finish line yet. I'm dragging along because you've broken both of my damn legs. How could you expect me to finish? The white man breaks our legs and then has a race and then says, well, you really are intellectually inferior to me. You robbed me of my name, my language, my religion, my culture, my God, my folkways, my mores, my norms, and then you turn around and give me a goddamn test? How could you expect me to score like you? 30 years after Dr. King, a Negro sits on the Supreme Court bench named Clarence Thomas, standing always against his people and always for the enemy who put him there, married to a big dinosaur-looking white woman. Look like he going home to Jurassic Park every time he go home. Nigga have to get on a step ladder just to get some sugar from that big, tall white woman. And I don't know why we do that. Don't know why we do that. Go and get the biggest, ugliest white woman we can find. Clarence Thomas have to hug her on one side and the beast is so big and then run around and hug her on the other side. 30 years after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., there's a rise in the Ku Klux Klan. 30 years after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the dream of the dreamer and his civil rights. 30 years after Minister Malcolm X, El Hajj Malik, El Shabazz, Brother Omar Wale, and his dream of human rights. 30 years thereafter, the white man still considers us 3/5 of a human being. At the Million Man March, we had well over 1 million to 1.5 million, maybe even 2 million, convened by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. The first foolishness was talking about separating the messenger from the message which came out by Messy Jesse. He popularized this madness about separating the messenger from the message. Close to 1.5 million, 2 million. And the crackers say he saw 400,000. Why? It's because the cracker was still counting us as 3/5 of a human being. He got mixed up on them fractions. Got them fractions mixed up. 30 years after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., 30 years after Martin Luther King Jr., a rise in the Ku Klux Klan, a rise in the Aryan Brotherhood, a rise in the American Nazi Party, a rise in the skinheads, a rise in militia groups, a rise in right-wing paramilitary hate organizations and hate groups and night riders and day riders as existed during Reconstruction. 30 years after Martin Luther King Jr., the Supreme Court has handed down are ruling in various states across the country. 30 years after Minister Malcolm X, Brother Omar Wale, El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, one believing in civil rights, one believing in human rights. 30 years after both of them, Malcolm said we must vote in a solid block, that we must vote in a black solid block. 30 years after Malcolm, the Supreme Court has handed down a decision ruling it unconstitutional for you to have what they call majority minority voting blocks. And so gerrymandering and remaneuvering, and so now they're taking small black districts, brown districts, and dumping them over into bigger white districts to bust up your black voting block, which lets you know that you can register to vote all the hell you want to, but voting will never get your behind out of this condition. You running around registering to vote. Some of you, you don't have to clap for me. You say, well, he's stepping on some toes now. And I know they got that camera running, and I don't want the camera to catch me applauding because I'm really with these folks and I'm with those folks. Nigga, you should be with the truth. Stand up for the truth. Stop dilly-dallying. Stop pussyfooting. Stop beating around the bush. Tiptoeing through the tulips. Speak the truth regardless of circumstance and stand up on the truth from the cradle to the grave. That's your divine responsibility and duty to our people here, generations yet unborn, and to our ancestors who have gone on. That's your duty, and that's your responsibility. And so, the voting blocks being busted up today. Unconstitutional to have a so-called majority, minority voting district. 30 years after Dr. King, the white man is killing us, it appears, like never before. You talk about slavery. You talk about the plantation. You talk about lynching. But when he kills a Yusuf Hawkins, when he kills a Philip Purnell, when he kills an Anthony Baez, when he kills a Brother Aswa, when he kills a Jerry Lee Amy and a Eula May Love, when he pulls the trigger and kills a Johnny Gamage or chokes a Johnny Gamage, or when he kills a Tyrone Lewis in St. Petersburg or Pittsburgh or wherever we are. It's 3 over here, it's 5 over there, it's 10 here, it's 20 there, it's 50 over there. He's lynching us today with a modern kind of lynching, and he's killing us today faster than he killed us on the plantation. You can't hang as many niggas from a tree and put a noose around their neck as you can pulling the trigger with an automatic and a semi-automatic weapon. But you miss 30 years after King and 30 years after Malcolm making a careful, critical, and correct analysis of what's going on. Because some of you still want to hold on. Maybe nobody in here. Maybe that's the ones who didn't come. In fact, let's establish some rules now. If I say anything that you don't like, just say, he ain't talking about me. Talking about somebody else. All right? Some of us are crazier today than we were when Malcolm was here, than we were when Martin was here. Some of you got your tikis and your sandals and your boobas and your dashikis and your red and your black and your green and your mud cloth and your kente cloth, and Christmas, you had a damn Christmas tree in your house. You got your afro, you got your dreadlocks, you got your African braids, you got all of that. You crowned and gowned to the ground. But you got a dead tree that the peckerwood sold you in your house with some kente ribbon on it, with a Santa Claus with red, black, and green on. You got a red, black, and green stocking over the fireplace. You have taken this madness and dressed it up and tried to give it an African flavor. Some of you today, 30 years after Malcolm, 30 years after Martin, 30 years after the call for civil rights and human rights, some of you are still quoting the white man's corrupt constitution and his Declaration of Independence and his Bill of Wrongs, his Bill of Rights. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator by certain unalienable rights, that to these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Let's look at that. Would you hold this for me, son? This is my son, Farrakhan. Give me a strong black. This book is what color? Black. Sorry, you talk about what color is it? Black. This is just plain toilet paper, unused. Plain toilet paper. It's just wet. This is big, it's heavy, and it's black. This is what? It's small, it's light, and it's white. I'm here to tell you tonight from the most honorable Elijah Muhammad that all men, all women are not created equal, but we are created equally. No teaching. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan from the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. There is nothing equal in the universe. One of your eyes is higher than the other one, or lower than the other. One is bigger than the other. One leg is shorter than the other, along as some of us walk like it. Some of us are one, we know that one of our arms is longer than the other arm. There is nothing equal in the universe, but everything in nature has been created equal. Everything in nature has been created equally, but not equally. Let's look at it. Again, black, big, and heavy. Huh? Small, light, and white. But when I drop it into a law, look carefully now, look down, don't look up. This ain't no magic, this ain't no abracadabra. This is not no hocus pocus, no shebang. Why? They both hit the floor at the same time. Let's look at it another way. This is what? White. This is what color? White. This is what? White. All right, let's look at it. We hold the two of them up. They're not equal, are they? No. One is big, one is small. One is white, one is black. Come on. Huh? Yes. One is heavy, one is light. They're not equal, but they have been created equally. And when you drop them into God's law, we did it at first with black being bigger and heavier and white being smaller and lighter. Now we do it the opposite way. And when we drop them, they both fall into a law and they both hit the floor what? At the same time. Let's look at it even further. Freedom is a law of nature. Freedom is a law of nature, and justice is deeply rooted in the universal order of things. It is the divine intent of the Almighty, all-wise God and Creator that everything live equally under His creation. Let's look at it. The ant and the anteater, the chicken and the chicken hawk. It makes no difference what it is in nature. All have been created equally, but not equal. Everything must have food, you with me? Water, air, and the proper environmental and atmospheric conditions. The ant must have food. The ant must have water. The ant must have air. The ant must have the proper atmospheric and environmental conditions to continue to live. But on the other hand, the anteater must have food. It just turns out that the ant is the food of the anteater. The anteater must have food, must have water, must have air, must have the proper environmental and atmospheric condition. Let's look at the chicken and the chicken hawk. Both of them must have food. Both must have air. Both must have water in the proper atmospheric and environmental condition. It just so happens that the chicken is the food of the chicken hawk. Nature is set up with predators and prey. And we have been the prey of the white man for the past 4,000 to 6,000 years of his sojourn here on our planet. The brown man and woman, the red man and woman, the yellow man and woman, all have been the prey of the white man. The white man is our natural enemy. I know nobody teaches that too much anymore. We've gotten sophisticated now. We talk all up in the clouds now. We talk all kinds of proper talk and talk that borderlines that we might be trying to get away, but we also look like we're trying to stay. All at the same time. We're dreaming of a brighter day in America. We gotta search for tomorrow in America. I cannot change, and I will not change. And God damn it, don't ask me to change, because I'm not going to. The white man is not a devil, but the white man is the devil. And if the white man is not the devil, he's going to have to do until the real devil gets here. Civil rights and human rights, the challenge of the 21st century. Look at it. If you're going to look at Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, you got to look at them in phases. You got Old Testament Malcolm and New Testament Malcolm. You got Old Testament Martin and New Testament Martin. Old Testament Martin had a soft line. Old Testament Martin had a soft line. New Testament Martin moved toward a harder line. Criticized America, challenged America, called America, stepped out of the realm of Negro affairs, stepped out of the box into the international arena, and started comparing the war in Vietnam with what black people were facing right here in the hells of North America. On the Ho Chi Minh Trail or the Edmund Pettus Bridge, Martin started making a comparison. So that's Old Testament Martin and New Testament Martin, from a softer line to a harder line. And I don't mind being unpopular if I stand on truth. I must say that there's again an Old Testament Malcolm and a New Testament Malcolm. Old Testament Malcolm leaned toward a harder line. New Testament Malcolm moved toward a softer line. Give a damn whether you applaud, don't give a damn whether you nod your head, don't give a damn whether you smile. I know they're not going to give you your money back, so you might as well just sit back and relax and deal with it. Let's look at it. Old Testament Malcolm said, a revolution is bloody. A revolution knows no compromise. A revolution uproots and overturns everything that gets in its path. Old Testament Malcolm said, if you knew what a revolution was, well, you wouldn't even use that word in your vocabulary. Old Testament Malcolm said, if you knew what a revolution was, well, you get back in the alley. That's Old Testament Malcolm. Old Testament Malcolm said, all white folks are the devil. He said, none of them are any good. He said, if you find one that you think is good. Kill him first before he turns bad. That's Old Testament now. Because just as sure as the sun shines, the guy's gonna turn bad. I'm telling you, buddy, he's gonna turn bad. No, make no mistake about it. The guy can't help it. Gee whiz. Golly gee. If you think anything else, it's far out, buddy. It's far out. Jimininis. I've been to Mecca 8 times. Okay? Yes, sir. I came back each time believing that the white man was more the devil after I got back than before I went over there. There are Muslims who don't want you to talk about this. We got to deal with the truth. Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. There is no division in Islam. There is no invidious class distinction in Islam. I'll be damned. I was in Mecca at the Mitar, or the airport. The biggest delegation to come to Mecca is represented by the blue, black, purple, black Nigerians and Senegalese from West Africa. West Africa sends the biggest delegation. Some of our brothers and sisters so beautiful, so black, looked like they would spit ink. It's black, spit black ink. I saw some of them, their greatest dream, even though they might be 70 or 80, some in their 90s, is to just make it to the holy city of Mecca one time in their life before they pass on. Some of them want to die in Mecca. That's their dream their whole life through. I saw elder sisters looking like they were 80 years, 90 years old in the airport. I saw racist white Arabs with their gutra and their thobe and all of that they wear. I saw them run through the airport and grab elder Nigerian sisters and Senegalese sisters and grab them and snatch them and just throw them across the airport. And I'd run to their white behinds and grab them and throw them against the damn wall. And couldn't speak Arabic, but I was telling them, that's my great grandmother that you just, whether I ever met her before, that's my great grandmother that I left in Africa generations down the line. I saw ghettos in Mecca. Tell me nothing about Mecca. I saw them come out with bread in their robes, in their thobes, and black people be there stuck or stranded there because they just wanted to be somewhere close to what they call the sacred precinct. And I see them arrogantly walk out and throw bread up in the sky and let it hit the ground, and our people eat off the ground. In an oil-rich Saudi Arabia, pumping billions of barrels and billions of dollars. Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia, Saudi from a root etymologically that's a similar root to Aswad, which means black. Arabia. If you're confused on that, read Chancellor Williams. Dr. Chancellor Williams says that all of that area changed from black to brown to white. From black to brown to white. That they drove us from the centers of power. And they set up in Saudi Arabia, as they call it today. They set up in what is called Israel today. They set up in Syria. They set up in Jordan. They set up in Morocco and Algeria, if I didn't say it. They set up in Egypt. They set up in Libya. They set up in all of those areas and drove us from the centers of power. And those areas changed from black to brown to white. You don't want to talk about that. You say, well, what about slavery? Let's talk about slavery in Islam. I haven't seen the slavery, but I'll tell you what I did see. I was in Medina at Masjid al-Nabi, the Prophet's mosque in Medina. I saw these men with their eyes back in their head. Their temples were recessed into their head, gaunt looking East African or looking Ethiopian or Somalian or Eritrean, which is all the same, till the white man started his game on them. They were rough on the women in the mosque. They were just grabbing women and throwing them all over the place. I didn't mind as long as they were throwing the white women. I wasn't like Malcolm. I didn't say nothing about that. But if they put their hand on a sister, I'd grab the hand and check them. So I asked, who are these men? And people say, you don't know who that is? It's a whole group of them. I said, no, who are they? They said, those are the eunuchs. My brain locked. I said, what are they, unique? What do they mean? I guess they are unique. They said, the eunuchs, you know what a eunuch is. I said, yeah. They say, yeah, you know, they're reproductive, they're regenerative organ. Their sex organ was cut off by the white Arabs. I got furious. I said, what? They said they bring them over from Africa. And they cut their regenerative and reproductive organs off so that they can watch over their harems and watch over their many women, and they not have to worry about the African brother impregnating one of their women. I had nightmares, dreams about these brothers. For nights, they were very antisocial. They didn't want to deal with anyone. They stayed among themselves. They had this kind of resentment, as I said, for women and for anything outside of their immediate circle. I saw that to the degree that I could see it with my own eyes, because some of you, you asked them crazy questions. I didn't see that far. No, somebody will say, did you really see? That's a fool. And I know we got a question and answer period coming up, so I'm trying to discourage the fools before we even get started. So if you're thinking about asking me that, don't ask me no damn silly question. And anyway, there was nothing to see. They had been castrated. Now that's going on today. So when there are rumors about slavery, because you're a Muslim, you might want to hide and say, well, I don't think so, and that's wrong. And it might be wrong, and it might be coming through the wrong channels. With the enemy having another plan for putting it out there, exacerbating tensions and exaggerating stories. But I have reason to believe that it could be true, but I have no proof, and I must be honest, except proof of the eunuchs is proof enough for me. I was in the Sudan, and I was sitting with Brother Sadiq al-Mahdi with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We were at Sadiq al-Mahdi's home, and out of the clear black or blue, I asked one of my questions. The minister looked at me. I said, Brother Sadiq, do our people here in the Sudan consider themselves Muslim? Or, I didn't say that. Do they consider themselves Arab or African? He never hesitated. He said Arab. But he's in the Sudan. He said, we are Arabs. Anyone who speaks the Arabic language is an Arab. I said, brother, that sounds, the minister looked at me. But he didn't stop me though. He let me go on. I said, that sounds like Arab imperialism to me. You mean you're an African and you deny your Africanism? To say that you're an Arab, I could have understood a little bit. If he would have said, we are Muslim, then he would have been dealing with something in a religious or a spiritual realm. But he said, we are Arab. And I hear many arrogant Arabs say, oh, assalamu alaikum, alhamdulillah, we are so happy that you have accepted our religion, Islam. Say it's not your religion. All that I'm covering now deals with Malcolm's dream of human rights. I would have to say that to you. You can't get, and there are others who have done so. But from that camp, it's rare, for whatever reason, that one would offer any support to me. In some of those camps, I'm the litmus test. It's true, in some of them. So I had to say that, so that the word goes out correctly and with balance from me. But I'm for the solution that I'm hearing all across the country more than anything else. Did we collect what you needed, Brother? Yes, sir. We got to get out of here. Yes, sir. You had a question, sir? All right. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Let's get a brother a strong black hand. I can't leave you out, my brother. Yes, sir. Okay. First of all, I have never met Akbar Muhammad. You know, there are two Akbar Muhammads. There's Minister Akbar Muhammad, who is the international ambassador of the Nation of Islam under the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, based in Ghana. This is not the Akbar Muhammad that brother is referring to. What's your name, brother? I know you well. Brother Yusuf, absolutely. He's referring to the youngest son by Sister Clara Muhammad of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Akbar Muhammad. Studied at Al-Azhar in Cairo and some other places. I have never met him and never had any direct contact with Brother Akbar Muhammad, son of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Your question about how Wallace D. Muhammad could become so patriotic, really it was a choice to some degree that he made. Beyond that, when he was born, October 30th, 1933, when he was born, Master Farad Muhammad at that time was getting ready to leave his student, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Two men were born in 1933 who have made tremendous impact. Wallace D. Muhammad was born October 30th, 1933, and Minister Louis Farrakhan was born May 11th, 1933. They were both born in the year that Master Farad Muhammad was leaving his student and his choice, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. When Sister Clara Muhammad was carrying Wallace D. Muhammad, Master Farad Muhammad wrote his name on the back of the door. And I have tapes of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad national radio broadcast and in Message to the Black Man, page 306, 307, and 308. If you have a message to the black man here anywhere, I'll read it to you. Where the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says on national radio broadcast, and he touches on it in the Message to the Black Man, 306, 307, and 308, that he knew of Wallace Muhammad from early in his life, or before he was even born, rather. He knew what he would do against him. Do you have Message to the Black Man here? He says on this tape that Wallace Muhammad even had plotted and planned his own son to kill him, he said. That he had lifted up not only his mouth, but was preparing with guns, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says on this tape, to kill him. He gave us the history of different divine ones in the scripture and their sons and their wives, and how their sons and wives had turned against them. He takes us to the Holy Quran as well, to the 11th chapter of the Holy Quran. Thank you, sir. Remind me to come back to the 11th chapter of the Holy Quran. Question. You listening? Page 306. Answer to the critics. My mission is to give life. Earlier, when we spoke of defections, those who break away from you, you mentioned something about the fact that Jesus has similar defections. Would you answer? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Yes, such defections are nothing. The public should not think it's strange. This time in which we live, we have the actual Spirit of God moving among the people. Question. Well now, in time, sir, your grandson, Sharif, or your son, Wallace, or Malcolm, ever expressed the desire to return to follow you again, would you accept them? Answer. There is nothing unforgivable. The Holy Quran teaches you. The only thing that is unforgivable is this, that you will not accept Allah as God and not accept His messenger as His messenger. These two things are one. We say the belief in Allah is the belief in His messenger of the Prophet of Allah, as the Prophet of Allah. The belief in the messenger or the Prophet of Allah is a belief in Allah. If you disbelieve in one, you disbelieve in both. You cannot believe in one and disbelieve in the other. This is the knowledge the world has not realized, and this is what God wants the world to know. I'm getting ready to drop the bomb in a minute. When God chooses His representative for the people, He speaks to the people through that representative, and if the people will accept that representative, we call them prophets, apostles, or messengers, then they are accepting Allah. But if they reject Him and still say they believe in Allah, they are considered enemies of Allah and disbelievers, because that is Allah in that representative, and you cannot accept one without accepting the other. You have got to accept both. You cannot get the blessings of Allah if you reject His messenger. Now these boys that you are referring to, they do not worry me. I do not give my time arguing with them or talking about why they believe or disbelieve. I do not even argue with them, because I knew these things in the beginning. I knew they would act like this, some of them. I was told about this 34 years ago. Now the book came out approximately in the mid-60s. 34 years ago is the time that Wallace Muhammad at that time was born. But they did not know these things, and I am not excited as the public would be, or as the public would like to see. In some cases, if the son disbelieves in his father must be wrong. But that is not so when it comes to a messenger of God. If we say that it is true, then it stands true in the common life of the family. There are some children who never sincerely accept their fathers as they should. There are some fathers who never accept their children as they should. So this is the nature of the human family of the earth, and when it comes to spiritual teachings, it is also the same. Not all of the family of a messenger are such as Noah and Lot. They do not always have true believers, but that did not detract one atom from his messengership. You do not take advantage of that unless you get into war or trouble with God. You do not say, I do not believe in him because his wife or his son does not believe in him. Why should I follow him? You would be getting yourself in trouble because that is given. I do not care anything about those who fall away from me after I have pointed out the truth to them, and despite this, they get wrong and go away from that truth. I'm almost finished. I am not responsible for this. For whatever they say against me, it is against themselves. What they preach and tell the people in order to get the people to disbelieve in me is much like Absalom and his father David. Absalom stole the affection of the people because he thought he looked better and younger than David. He thought therefore the people would follow him and that he could steal the people over to himself and get rid of his father as king and be the king himself. But he was not to be the king. The man that was to be the king had yet to be known. That was Solomon. These facts are all put there to deepen our knowledge, and time repeats these things over and over again. And so this is what we face today, and I'm not surprised. The public is surprised, some of them, at the deviation of Malcolm or my son Wallace. I am not surprised, but they cannot yet say I am not the messenger of Allah. They cannot take that away from me. Page 306, 307, 308. He talks about Absalom, the son of David, and how Absalom, very quickly, how Absalom tried to steal the affection of his father and his father's followers. He turns to the 11th chapter of the Holy Quran and how Noah's son turned against him, and how ultimately God said to Noah, he is not your son. He is the very embodiment of evil and unrighteous conduct. If you ask me about that son one more time, I will drown you along with the disbelievers. And so Wallace Muhammad had left his father at least 3 times and went out against his father. He always, more or less, kind of leaned toward the American way. When he spoke in Atlanta, Georgia, in his Atlanta address, he said this. He said, if America is attacked by a Muslim nation or an African nation, he said he would be on the side of America. He said, I am not going to jump up out of my nation against some foreign nation. And I'm not lying on him at all. He went on to say, even if my nation is wrong, I will fight within my nation to correct my nation, but I am not going to jump up out of my nation to fight against my nation.